So this is our last story for the night. I feel like we'll have an interesting discussion about it. So, Amazon workers at over 50 buildings have contacted the union about organizing. Our friend Chris Smalls, right, doing the work here. After Amazon workers successfully unionized at a warehouse in Staten Island in New York, a flood of Amazon workers across the country contacted the union about organizing their own workplaces, according to the union's president. Amazon Labor Union, the ALU leader Christian Smalls, wrote on Twitter on Tuesday that workers at over 50 locations have contacted the union since their win on Friday. So workers at the JFK 8 warehouse in Staten Island voted in favor of unionizing with a 55% yes vote. The union won by over 500 votes with a vote count of 2,654 to 2,131. Over 8,000 employees work at that warehouse. It was a stunning win for the ALU, an independent union that was formed last year with no affiliation to a major organization. Small said it was the leadership of the union's organizing team that brought them the victory and sarcastically thanked Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos for the win. We want to thank Jeff Bezos for going to space because when he was up there, we was signing people up, Small said in a speech after the victory. So the ALU is also in the process of organizing LDJ5, a second warehouse in New York. About 15,000 employees work there. Those workers will soon get their own union election after filing for one in February. So when workers in Bessemer, Alabama began unionizing with the retail warehouse and department store union, the RWDSU similarly said that over 1,000 workers had contacted the union about organizing last year. Bessemer workers' first attempt at unionizing failed. The National Labor Relations Board ordered a second union election for the warehouse because Amazon illegally interfered with the first campaign. The Labor Board said the result of the second election, which the NLRB began counting last week, were too close to call on Friday. The final result will come down to roughly 400 challenge ballots, the eligibility of which will be determined by the NLRB in the coming weeks. However, the fact that workers are eager to contact the union is an indication that the union campaign may spread to Amazon warehouses and workplaces across the country, especially now that workers in New York have shown that it can be done despite aggressive union busting from the company. As the labor movement undergoes a resurgence, public support for unions is growing. A Gallup poll found last year the support for labor unions in the U.S. is at 65%, the highest point since 1965. Still, the path ahead for the ALU may be difficult, as labor reporter Stephen Greenhouse noted in The Atlantic. ALU's independent status is part of its strength, but could also be a weakness if the union isn't able to gather enough resources and infrastructure to be able to organize other warehouses. You gotta do it with us. You gotta do it with us. You can't do it on your own. You gotta do it with us. God, get your mind right, people. Speaking of doing stuff with us,
we got the juggler. We went for the juggler, and we went for the top dog.
This moment, damn. Man, I ain't gonna cry right now. I only wanted to do the right thing and speak up for the workers behind me.
Speaking up for workers and winning. This is a historic labor victory. The news breaking today, a landmark vote. This is at an Amazon warehouse in New York to form a union. It's the first of its kind. Amazon is the second largest employer in America. Over 1 million people work at warehouses and around the Amazon delivery process.
To the right speed, so
all
we don't
throughout
have to
the country.
know.
The New York Times
let me
says this
speed
is one
up
of the biggest
MSNBC
victories
for
for
everyone.
organized labor in a generation. It all started here in Staten Island, New York. It comes after there were many setbacks and a whole different effort to unionize an Amazon warehouse down in Alabama.
So I just wanted people to kind of notice what's going on in their pictures behind here. Like, why did they get the picture with this guy's tum-tum out? You know, like, I don't know why, you know, but I was talking about it with Collin, and we were noting the kind of, I feel like the almost dog whistling, like, imagery they're trying to pull off there, you know, like just to scare those, you know, wine moms at home. You know, you can't have.
Yeah. We talked about this last night when we were prepping, and this is probably not going to be a popular take, but I'm going to say it anyway. But Reef, you mentioned it, so
yeah,
and I'm more than comfortable to say it. I'll take the blame for it. Like, I don't care. But I feel like, as you said, this is kind of a low-key dog whistle. You know, just the way that they're choosing now. To be fair to Chris, and we know Chris, obviously, like, he looks a certain way, but I think if you're around any independent media channel for any point in time, you know who Chris Smalls is, and you know how articulate he is, and you know how passionate he is, and he is very serious toward this work. Like, mainstream media does not know who he is, not in that way, other than like when he got fired from Amazon 2 years ago. And what people will remember him for is that Bezos basically called him, stupid, basically, so that's what people remember him for. Now, cut to 2 years later, obviously with this, people are going to associate, like, probably what Bezos said about him then to what they're seeing here, like, he's dressed, more street, whatever else. He, like, he's not like, well, like, he speaks in that certain cadence, and I think especially, for like a white suburb mom or whoever, this can be viewed as threatening.
Right. I mean,
like,
it's like
this is the association of
silent
what
fear
the
mongering.
working class looks like, and that's not necessarily the case, but I think the idea that, CNBC, this kind of reminds me of when AOC won, against Joe Crowley. Like, no one knew who AOC was prior to, but then she won, so they were like, oh, damn, we have to talk about this now. So like now it's like, Chris Moss got this major victory, oh, damn, we have to talk about him now. And I feel like I think basically the theme of tonight is I blame the squad in a lot of ways, because the fact that AOC kind of jumped on the gun, just shy of the victory after she did nothing to, like, promote Amazon or anyone in the squad promote what Chris Moss was doing, even at minimum, like a tweet, over the last couple of years, would have helped to kind of elevate his name, to kind of elevate the movement. But they're only jumping on it now just to kind of take credit for it. And shout out to Chris, who basically calling them out and basically saying, you get no credit for this. Like, the people got credit for this. So, but I feel they could have done a lot more to bring his name up in the mainstream so that people will have a better viewing of him rather than what they might see and make an assumption, like, based on what he looks like and how he speaks, like, that he might be a bug.
I think if they're doing that, it's going to backfire hardcore. I think he's a perfect figurehead for a movement like this, because most people who work at Amazon who believe that they should be treated better they work at Amazon, so they're working poor people. They resonate with people like Chris Smalls. It's going to backfire, because the only people that think Chris is a thug are the people that don't work at Amazon, that are at home because they're rich as fuck. So at the end, this works out, I think, much more to the benefit of future union drives, because the future union drives should absolutely be led by people who have worked there before, who in fact are poor people, because that's who people want to follow. That's who I want to follow. If somebody showed up in a tuxedo and tried to get me on board for joining a union for Amazon, I'd be like, what the fuck do you know about it? You don't work here. You've never worked here. You never, judging by your clothes, you've never worked anything like this. So in a way, I think if they're trying to, in tongue-in-cheek, demonize Chris, it's only going to backfire and make him more like a cult legend, which is going to work very much
into this interview, and keep that bit of imagery in mind. You were talking about, people in suits and whatnot, right?
When workers have to make these decisions, there's many pressures on it, which I've covered. People have the right to decide to join. They have the right not to join. That's how it's supposed to be. Did you find that this was a debate at the warehouse that was on the level, or do you think when workers have to make these decisions, there's many pressures on it, which I've covered. People have the right to decide to join. They have the right not to join. That's how it's supposed to be.
That phrasing alone.
Did you find that this was a debate at the warehouse that was on the level, or do you think Amazon, and thus effectively Jeff Bezos, if we're going to talk,
do you want to speak on that, Reef?
We're funding and interfering in a way
just the phrasing of like, you could join. You don't have to join, but you can, but you don't have to. It's just such a like, dumb like anti-union like
yeah. It's the same
know.
as like when you call right to work laws. They're not right to work laws. It's
the right to be
anti-union
fired.
laws.
Yeah, like
Exactly right. So he's trying to frame it, and of course he says, "Oh, of course you can or you can't." He wants to stay neutral because all of these mainstream media pundits, they don't want unions because they're rich people, and rich people make more money when you can't get unionized. And he doesn't understand that, like when you work at Amazon, if you can educate the people into understanding that like unionizing at Amazon can save your life in a way, like, and it can really help your benefits, help you from not having to like die on the job because you're working 17 hours in a row, or you're not having to pee in, bottles and poop in bags and stuff like that. He doesn't understand that joining a union solves all of that. But rich people won't phrase it that way because they benefit from there not being unions. So yeah, he's just in a way very slightly more clever in his anti-union propaganda than somebody on Fox News like Stuart Varney would be.
Yeah.
Right.
A free and open debate.
Of course, it wasn't fair. Amazon spends millions of dollars. There's already been reports that came out of how much money they spent on us, and that's just the surface level. I can guarantee they spend a lot more money than that. They lost a lot of money union busting against us, and of course, it starts from the top. Jeff Bezos himself, and it trickles down into these warehouses that are trying to unionize. So we definitely had our fair share. As you mentioned, I was arrested a few weeks ago, along with two organizers. One of them been arrested twice, in just 3 months during our campaign. Just to tell you the lengths of what they're going to stop us from trying to get to this point. So the odds that we defeated, to be able to get to this point and actually be victorious, this is the best feeling in the world.
So, I mean, it's just him talking about how Amazon screwed him over on that, and how they continue to screw things over there. I felt that was definitely important part of that interview to talk about.
It would have been interesting to hear what Robert Reich had to say, because one of the things about Reich is he was Secretary of Labor under Clinton. And he is kind of pseudo lefty, but he was definitely one of the, you have to vote for Biden. Right. Otherwise, the end of the world is coming. Now, here's the interesting why I want to hear what he has to say on something like this, because methinks he'll go, well, this is great. I love that this union drive was successful. It makes me very happy. But what he won't say is the guy that he told you to vote for, Joe Biden, in fact, did not overrule the parliamentarian when she removed the PRO Act from the Build Back Better plan. So Joe Biden, even though he said he was pro-union on the campaign trail, and Reich definitely was cheerleading for Biden, methinks he's not going to call Biden out for effectively not using his power to add the PRO Act into legislation. So that needs to be called out as well. The people did this. The Democrats had nothing to do with it. Not AOC, not Biden. All of them did absolutely zero. And it would have been interesting to see if Reich decided to actually give the Democrats some credit, or if he would mention Joe Biden doing that. Methinks he would not.
No, I purposefully skipped Reich's part of this interview for a couple of reasons. Mainly because all he said was, this is a very good win. It's very big, very good. We'd like to see many more, and that was pretty much it, And
you know what have made it a lot easier? The PRO Act, which Joe Biden said he was for, and you said to elect Joe Biden, and you guys are both like rhetorically on board for unions, but why is no one talking about how Joe Biden actively stopped union formation by allowing the parliamentarian to get rid of that provision?
But we definitely noticed, you can't have Smalls on just by himself. You got to bring some Clintonite to add validity to, and in some cases you've now alluded to the fact that Reich had anything to do with this at all, which he did not. Like, both of those things you were just trying to shoehorn, past Clintonite, right? Who, sheepdogs plenty into the party, right? It's just an interesting, like, you got to put him with the suited white guy so that everyone feels okay talking to Smalls,
Yeah, and they'll say that this is a great victory and it happened under Democratic rule without telling you the fact that the Democrats actively made this as difficult as possible for it to happen. And they'll leave that second part out. And that's what's frustrating to me, because it's like, these people want you to vote blue no matter who, because it's, there was unions formed under Biden, without telling you with that asterisk that actually Biden made it much more difficult to form unions.
Yeah. So he goes on in this interview to talk about.
I do want to ask you, Christian, what do you think people need to know about what goes into these warehouses and the Amazon delivery system? Because statistically, most people watching this have probably used Amazon or gotten a delivery, and people appreciate the aspects of the service and the price. What do you want people to know about what goes into that, and what would it cost to take, in your view, better care of the people doing the work?
Yeah, I've never blamed the customer. The customers definitely don't know what it entails with these jobs. So let me break it down. These warehouses are massive. They're almost 1 million square feet, if not over. They're 14 NFL football fields. I used to tell my new hires, if you have a gym membership, you have to cancel it because you're doing 10 to 12 hours of calisthenics. Your break is only 30 minutes. You're being tracked for every single second that you're not scanning an item. You have to prepare yourself mentally really over more the physical aspect, because you have to change your whole lifestyle when you work for this company. You lose family time, you lose sleep. Your commute is 2.5 hours, 3 hours, depending on where you live, what borough you're coming from. I know I lived in New Jersey, working in Staten Island, so my commute was 3 hours each way on top of a 12-hour work shift, and you're rinsing and repeating. So we're so disconnected from society. All we know is Amazon. And, when customers support this company, they got to understand our voices matter too. And we were deemed essential workers. We weren't asked. Our job title, high school diploma and a GED. It didn't say work in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Yeah. And, that led me to walk out, and then ultimately led me to lead this union drive. And I'm happy that we were able to, once again, be successful.
Yep. So good for Smalls.
I do want to ask.
No, gotta go to the next slide. So I just wanted to, this is almost an open letter to Christian. If you're out there listening, if anyone sends this to you, right, just keep in mind who has been supporting you. Jimmy's been giving Christian Smalls a platform to organize a union at Amazon since May of last year, 2020, not even last year. So, and I wanted to keep in mind the parallels that we're seeing here as well as here. So, to me, this is a big opportunity for Mr. Smalls, who they are already trying to push towards running for office. Why would you give up the one bit of power you've actually been able to actually grant against one of the biggest, capitalist empires that has ever fucking been here with Amazon, right? You want him to stop all that to go kiss babies, to try to, no, your job is to do the fucking legal part of it. Let him fight with the company to get what he wants, and what the workers want. But I just wanted to voice those parallels, and luckily, if Smalls doesn't want to become this person, right, who doesn't want to become what this person grew up to be, right, which hopefully, based off, his statements against AOC, right, and how she wasn't there for this, I know, this is way back, around the same time he went on Jimmy, right, to say that, he wants to thank AOC, that he received his statement to the people at our march on Jeff Bezos's rally. So at one point, their views aligned, right? At least here. I just hope he doesn't get pulled into that fold in any way. He's on MSNBC with Robert Reich. He's on, I feel, that yes, those are all great places to get your message out, and you should go on them. Absolutely. But there's a big but here. You need to also continue to come down to these little networks and the indie places and actually actively communicate with us, whether that's in public, on camera, or in DMs, so that we actually know what's going on, what's actually being fought for, and how we can help actually do work. You know,
I think Chris is a different beast than that. So I don't think he's necessarily in it for the clout, so to speak. I think he's really in it generally for, and I think especially since, you know, if anything, he has a bone to pick, you know, with Amazon, given how they treated him and how they've treated, you know, probably his colleagues as well. So I think the difference is with Chris, like he actually lived the experience. You know, people like AOC has had a very, not to say like, you know, she didn't struggle, but she had more privilege and opportunity than probably Chris ever had. So I think given that, I think it makes all the difference in the world. And I think Chris, I'm sure, is well aware of, if anything, like he's in danger basically, because now like he has power, you know, but the power is coming from the people versus the power that could be given to him, you know, from the establishment. So I think Chris is well aware of that. So I think he definitely needs to be kind of careful moving in these streets, basically. Yeah. But I don't think, and I'm very cynical, just basically in my views, but I'm going to be very positive here. I don't think Chris will take the bait, so to speak, you know, and as far as anything with the establishment will offer him or anything. I think given what he has said, you know, I think just recently, again, regarding to AOC, you know, just being like, you didn't do shit, you know, like, I think, like, I think he has a good head on his shoulders. So I think he's well aware of the danger and
I know he's friends,
you know, the
with
hypocrisy that exists.
RBN and Jimmy and whatever. You know, I can't wait to see you on those shows coming soon. Friends of Indie Left is always open to you, Mr. Smalls, as well as this show. We'd love to have you on to talk about what happens going forward. But, you know, I just feel like communication is going to be key with the people who actually give a shit. So, you know, just make sure you know who your allies are. That's all I'm saying. Yep. You know,
they're opening up an Amazon factory in Pekin, which is just south of where I live, and it hasn't opened. It's opening later on this year, and you better believe when they open up, one of the first people I'm going to be reaching out to is Mr. Smalls, because I'm going to be trying to emulate what he did here, and I'll try to do my best there to do the same thing he just did.
So, you know, I think it's massively important, and it's one of the only ways we have right now of affecting change in any meaningful way. You know, so I massive respect to what Smalls had to go through and deal with and still deals with. They tried to arrest him. They tried, you know, they've done everything in the book to try to shut these actions down because they're worried about it. And if they're worried about it, that's a good thing.